The first high-level talks aimed at ending the war in Ukraine have wrapped up. U.S. and Russian officials describing the 4.5-hour meeting as successful. White House National Security Advisor Mike Waltz says any agreement needs to lead to a permanent end to the war.
We know just the practical reality is that there is going to be some discussion of territory, and there's going to be discussion of security guarantees. Those are just fundamental basics that will undergird and underlie any type of discussion.
The talks took place between top U.S. and Russian officials in Saudi Arabia, but without any representatives from Ukraine. Russian officials say the two sides discussed the terms of a meeting between Putin and U.S. President Trump. No date has been set for that meeting. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says his country won't accept any agreements that are made without their input. Zelensky, in the meantime, is in Turkey discussing the possibility of talks to end the war. Zelensky says he has canceled his trip to Saudi Arabia, postponing the visit until March. He says no agreement can be reached without Ukraine and that negotiations should not take place behind Ukraine's back. With me now is military analyst and retired Air Force Special Operations Commander Glenn Ignazio. Hey, Glenn, thanks so much for your time and insight on this today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely good to be with you.
Yeah, the U.S. and Russia holding these talks and ending the war in Ukraine. Ukraine, of course, pushing back, saying they need to be part of these talks. Where does this leave them now?
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, if we look at this, there was that summit that was in Munich, and they had discussions with, Ukraine without Russia present, and then now with Russia without Ukraine present. So are they trying to, try to brief both sides, try to come to some middle ground? But I completely agree is that when it comes to a final decision, or at least in final decisions and negotiations, Zelensky has to be involved. Ukraine is absolutely the one that owns this as far as being being invaded. But as far as these negotiations starting out, I'm sort of looking at it tempered right now.
If Ukraine is ultimately left out of some of the major negotiations and does not agree to any potential deal, what could it mean for the future of that country?
Yeah, I mean, they always have the final say, right? I mean, that's definitely the privilege that they have, and they should have, and they should be involved in this at every stage. But I think that one of the leverage points here would be what kind of support are they getting from the United States? That seems to be the leverage. The same thing of what is being done to Russia. What are they given to get out of this? They have huge inflation. They have a lot of sanctions against them. So there's probably some carrots there. And then again, Ukraine will be depending on the United States greatly. And this is where a lot of the talks right now about Europe and NATO being able to support them directly. That's where I think we're coming to at this point.
How concerned should allies be about the talks between the U.S. and Russia, the phone call between Trump and Putin, and what recourse might allies have to intervene, notably, as you brought up, those in Europe?
Yeah, so at least one of my critiques from the prior administration, and I mean this apolitically, was there was no negotiation or discussions whatsoever with Putin. And that really had to occur. You cannot get to some kind of peace agreement with some kind of discussion. So the idea that it started, I'm happy with. But what we see here is that I don't believe that President Trump is going to do this empty-handed anymore. That's why you see these mineral rights, you see all these things, basically Ukraine trying to pay for it. But this is where Europe has to pick up a bigger load. And I think that's one of the things they've been lacking. So that's going to be the concern. And there have been questions from the U.S. to European countries saying, hey, what would you need to support Ukraine on your own? So I think the dialogue is going in the right way, and I think the right actions are being taken. But again, it's an unsettling time because this is a different way of doing things.
Glenn Ignazio is a military analyst and retired Air Force Special Operations Commander. Glenn, thanks so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Take care.